Right, to do this question, you need to be able to understand this graph. Now, in this graph, you can see that they are plotting mass against volume, right? So the density is actually the gradient of this graph. Now, why is that so? Because when you want to find gradient, you will take the increase in y, so y2 minus y1, and divide by x2 minus x1, which is the increase in x. So basically, you're taking the mass divided by the volume, and that will be equal to the density. So therefore, the one which is the steepest, so graph A is very steep. So if the steepest graph would mean that it has the largest gradient, which will mean that it will have the largest density. So that corresponds to mercury over here. But even if you don't know that the gradient gives you the density, another way to look at it is you could let's say, look at any of the mass, okay, let's say 20. If you look at 20, and then you will notice that for the same mass, A actually has the smallest volume. So if you have the smallest volume for the same mass, it means it is the densest. Whereas for C, with the same mass, the volume is very large, right? So mass divided by volume is density. So therefore, you will know that C has the smallest density. So you can look at it both ways. So therefore, the answer will be A is mercury, B is water, and C is benzene, because benzene has the smallest density over here. And it says, what can you conclude about relationship between mass and volume of the liquid? If you look at the graph again, for all straight line graph, you can say that it is a linear relationship. So you could say that as the volume increases, the mass increases linearly. And if you look carefully, you will also notice that this graph passes through the 0, 0, the origin. And you would have learned in class that if the graph passes through origin, then you can say that the x and y values are proportional. So you can say that as volume increases, the mass increases linearly. It's important to have this word. Oh, sorry. It's important to have this word because it is a straight line graph. Okay. Or you can use, in this case, the word proportional, because in this case, the graph of mass and volume, it passes through the origin and it's a straight line. And for part C, compare the volume of the liquids. Well, remember, mercury has the largest density. And so now all three, so density equals to mass over volume, right? And now all the three liquids have the same mass. So this is the same mass. So which means that the smaller the density, the larger the volume. This is inversely proportional. So the larger the density, the smaller the volume. So we learn from the part A that the largest, so mercury has the largest density. So therefore, it will have the smallest volume, because in this case, all the three masses are the same, right? And the last question, you notice that the command word here is suggest. Now, suggest means it could be something that you have learned before, may not be exactly from your syllabus, but you will need, you can be a little more creative, okay? Maybe something that you haven't learned in class. So they said that why water cannot be used to extinguish a fire caused by benzene? Well, benzene is already given that benzene has a density of 0.88 grams per cm cube, and water's density is 1 gram per cm cube. So benzene's density is smaller than water's density. So when you have benzene and water together, benzene is going to float on top of water. So because it's going to float on top of water, there's no way you can extinguish. So if there's a fire and benzene is burning over here, and you try to add water, the water will just be at the bottom, right? And the benzene will just continue burning at the top. And next, benzene is a colorless gas. Describe the movement of benzene between 70 and 9 at 70 and at 90. Since the boiling point is at 80 degrees Celsius, so at 70 benzene is a liquid, at 90 it is a gas. So from your knowledge on particulate model, a liquid particles will glide or slide or move around one another, whereas gas particles will move randomly at high speed. Both random and high speed need to be in the answer in order to get a 1 mark. Take note that you don't have to write about packing, you don't have to write about attraction forces and so on, because the question only asks for movement. So just answer based on what the question asks.